Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast. Is it worth it?
We are so incredibly glad you're here with us today.
Because today, we have a mission. Imagine standing in a city where, on your morning walk to grab a coffee, you pass French legionnaires, Chinese naval officers, United States drone operators, and Japanese soldiers.
Right. And they are all sharing a plot of land that is roughly the size of New Hampshire.
It's wild. We're taking you on a deep dive into one of the most geopolitically loaded, logistically brutal, and honestly, genuinely fascinating destinations currently available to travelers.
It really is. We've gone through the source material, the guides, the economic data, and we are looking squarely at the Republic of Djibouti.
Exactly. And just to give you an overview of the journey we're taking you on today, we are going to explore this massive paradox.
Yeah, a landscape shared by 5 foreign military bases on one hand and filter-feeding whale sharks on the other.
Right? We're going to look at salt lakes that look so alien they could be extraterrestrial. Plus, a city pitching itself as Africa's next Dubai.
But, a city which is already charging you Gulf prices today.
Exactly. We will confront the brutal physical reality of 107-degree Fahrenheit summer heat, break down the new eVisa reform, and look at daily out-of-pocket budgets.
And those range anywhere from a $30 absolute floor to well over $100 at the top end.
Oh, and of course, we are going to look at those brutal airfares. We're talking $1,400 or more just to get there from Western cities.
It's an investment for sure.
So the ultimate goal here is to give you, the listener, the honest verdict on whether this bucket list adventure is genuinely worth the massive logistical and financial investment.
And to set the context right out of the gate, this is not your casual sit-on-the-beach vacation.
No, definitely not.
You are not going to find rows of all-inclusive loungers here.
Yeah.
This deep dive is for the adventure traveler.
Yeah, it is for anyone who has ever looked at a map of the Horn of Africa, seen this tiny sliver of land, and asked the question, why does everyone have a military base here?
Which is exactly the right question to ask.
Which brings us to the first major hurdle of understanding this place. We have this contrarian claim in the research.
Right. The idea that Djibouti might just be the most strategically important country on Earth that almost no leisure traveler visits.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate VIP room of global geopolitics. The entry fee is astronomical, the bouncers are heavily armed, and inside, the world's most powerful people are having quiet, intense conversations.
But there's no dance floor.
Exactly. As a tourist, nobody is inviting you to the party.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. When you look at the scale of what is happening here, it is almost hard to comprehend.
Give us the numbers.
Well, the entire country is only 23,200 square kilometers.
Wow, okay.
To put that physical space in perspective for you, that is roughly the size of Wales or the state of New Hampshire. And the population living within those borders is just under 1 million people.
That is tiny.
It is. Yet, packed into this tiny, arid area, you have 5 permanent foreign military bases.
Let's actually name them, because the list is just staggering.
Okay, so you have the United States operating out of Camp Lemonnier, which is their primary base of operations for the entire region.
Right.
Then you have France, the former colonial power, operating base Ariane 188. You have China, which is a massive talking point globally because this is their first ever overseas naval facility.
Wow, their first ever.
Yeah. And you have Japan operating the JGSDF Camp Djibouti. And finally, you have Italy operating a base right near the port.
Wait, I have to push back on this right away. You are telling me that 5 global superpowers, including direct geopolitical rivals like the United States and China, are essentially parked right next to each other in a space the size of New Hampshire.
That's exactly right.
Doesn't that make this place a powder keg? Like, how is that an anchor of stability?
It sounds counterintuitive, I know, but it's essentially the ultimate application of deterrence theory.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to start a conflict in the very parking lot where everyone else has their most expensive military hardware. It's a localized stalemate.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
But to understand why they're all there, willing to share this tiny space, you really have to look at the water. It is all about the Bab-el-Mandeb Strait.
The bottleneck.
Exactly. This narrow corridor of water between the Horn of Africa and Yemen is one of the most critical maritime choke points on the planet.
Because of the trade routes.
Yes. Approximately 12 to 15% of all global trade and a massive share of the world's global oil supply flows right past Djibouti's shores on its way to the Suez Canal.
That is a staggering percentage. I mean, you were talking about the lifeblood of the global economy passing through a corridor you could practically see across.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, particularly the events of the last few years, Djibouti's profile hasn't just remained static.
Right. It's changed.
It has been fundamentally elevated. The source material outlines how the Houthi missile campaign in the Red Sea, which started escalating through 2024, intensified in 2025, and continues into 2026, has thrown global logistics into absolute chaos.
We've all seen the headlines on that.
Yeah, and major shipping companies like Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd, they've been forced to reroute entire massive fleets the long way around the Cape of Good Hope at the bottom of Africa.
Which adds millions of dollars in fuel and weeks of delay to global supply chains.
Precisely. Because of that ongoing, intense threat in the Red Sea, the eyes of the global logistics and military world are completely locked onto the Bab-el-Mandeb Strait.
Making Djibouti even more important.
Yeah, Djibouti is the single solitary anchor of stability right on the edge of that chaotic choke point.
Which creates a really fascinating contradiction for travelers looking at their safety apps.
How so?
Well, on one hand, because of those 5 military bases, Djibouti is objectively one of the safest countries in the Horn of Africa. You have a security umbrella that is unmatched.
Right, absolutely.
But on the other hand, if you pull up the U.S. State Department website, they issue a Level 2 advisory for the country, telling travelers to exercise increased caution.
Yeah, it's tricky.
If I'm a tourist, that mixed messaging is super confusing.
Right, and it's vital to unpack the underlying mechanism of that advisory. The State Department isn't issuing that Level 2 warning because there are riots in the streets of Djibouti City or domestic uprisings.
It's not internal.
No, it is entirely about regional proximity to terrorism. It's because of the porous borders with Somalia to the south and the sheer physical closeness to the conflict in Yemen just across the strait. The threat is external, not internal. The domestic situation inside Djibouti is remarkably stable.
But accessing that localized stability is going to cost you deeply. Let's look at the financial barrier to entry.
The flights.
Yeah, because the flight costs projected for June 2026 are honestly eye-watering. The sources break this down by region, and it is rough.
Let's hear the numbers.
From London, you are looking at $1,400 to $1,600 for a round-trip ticket.
Wow.
From Toronto, it jumps to $1,600 to $2,100.
That's intense.
If you're coming from Sydney or Melbourne, expect $1,800 to $2,200. And you are usually enduring massive layovers connecting via Addis Ababa or Dubai.
Oh, brutal.
And from Auckland, connecting through Sydney or Dubai pushes the total to $2,300 or more.
Yeah, those numbers fundamentally change the nature of the destination. I mean, those are simply not budget numbers.
Not at all.
A $1,400 flight is prohibitive for a huge percentage of the casual travel market. It automatically filters out the casual backpacker looking for a cheap weekend getaway.
And what's wild is that the Djiboutian government knows this. They are actively trying to change the demographics of who flies in.
Right, they have a plan.
Because right now, the statistics show that 98% of the people arriving at the airport are there for business, diplomacy, or are military adjacent.
Almost entirely corporate or government travel.
Exactly. But the government has this formal vision for 2030. They want to shift that ratio and capture a meaningful share of the global leisure travel market. They want tourists.
And the single biggest structural change they've made to catalyze that goal is the eVisa reform, which really rolled out at scale in 2024.
That made a huge difference, right?
It did. Before this, getting a visa meant dealing with complex consulate paperwork, mailing your passport away, or physically visiting an embassy.
A total headache.
Yeah. But now, depending on your processing speed and your entry type, you can secure a tourism visa online for $29 to $49 US.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have the geopolitical macro view. We understand the bottleneck of global trade, the massive flight costs keeping casual tourists away, and this new eVisa system trying to open the door.
Right.
But let's shift gears. What happens when you actually step off that expensive flight? Because the physical realities on the ground, specifically the climate, dictate absolutely everything about how a human being experiences this trip.
The climate dictates everything. You cannot negotiate with the weather in the Horn of Africa.
It's intense.
The climate in Djibouti operates like a strict on-off switch. There is no subtle transition between 4 beautiful seasons.
Just 2 modes.
There are essentially 2 binary zones. The hot season, which dominates the calendar from May through September, is staggering. We are talking about ambient temperatures in Djibouti City that regularly hit 100 to 107 degrees Fahrenheit.
I want to pause on that because 107 degrees on a coastal city is not the same as 107 degrees in the dry desert of Arizona.
No, it's vastly different.
We are talking about intense heat mixed with humidity blowing off the Gulf. The sources are very clear. This is legitimately dangerous outdoor heat. It alters your physiology.
Exactly. When you factor in the humidity, your body's primary cooling mechanism, sweat, can't evaporate efficiently.
Right.
It's not just uncomfortable, it severely limits your ability to function outdoors. Walking 2 blocks to a market becomes an exhausting aerobic exercise.
Wow.
Because of this, most overlanders, digital nomads, and adventure travelers avoid this summer window entirely.
So if summer is out, when do you go?
The cooler season, which runs from October through April, is the only viable window for most leisure travelers. And within that broader window, November to February is the absolute sweet spot. The temperatures drop down to a much more manageable 72 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit.
Which naturally creates an intensely compressed tourist season, leading to massive pricing peaks and valleys.
Absolutely.
January is the absolute peak. The weather is at its best, but that means those already brutal flight prices we just talked about hit their absolute maximum ceiling.
But the data provides a lifeline for those who have some flexibility in their schedule.
Oh, really?
Yeah, according to Skyscanner data analyzed in the sources, November is statistically the cheapest month to fly.
That's a great tip.
For example, U.S. fares, which can easily top $1,500 in January, can dip down toward the $1,100 range in November.
And November happens to align perfectly with the single biggest biological driver of leisure travel to the country. This is the ultimate magnet.
The whale sharks.
Yes. These massive, beautiful creatures gather in the Gulf of Tadjoura and the Bay of Gulf.
It's incredible.
The overarching season to see them runs from October through January, but the data pinpoints November and December as the absolute peak window for reliable sightings.
It is a remarkable natural phenomenon. The nutrient-rich waters attract them, and swimming with them is world-class.
I would love to do that.
Now, to understand how you get to these natural wonders, you have to understand the human geography of the country.
Right. Let's talk about the population.
We mentioned earlier the population is hovering around the 1 million mark, though some demographic sources from the brief place the total closer to just over 1.2 million when factoring in the greater metropolitan density and nomadic movements.
Regardless of the exact census figure, the key takeaway is that this population is intensely concentrated in Djibouti City.
Right. The vast majority of the country's citizens live in one central urban sprawl.
Okay.
Once you leave the city limits, the interior of the country places like the Afar Triangle, the western edges of the Danakil Depression, Lac Assal, and Lac Bay is geologically extraordinary, but it is incredibly sparsely populated.
You are heading into empty, harsh terrain.
Exactly.
Which challenges a really common assumption we make as travelers. Usually when you find a destination with low crowds, you think, amazing, I've found a hidden gem. Everything will be cheap and easy.
That's the dream.
But here, low crowds just mean a massive logistical headache, don't they?
That's entirely correct, and it's a vital paradigm shift for anyone planning this trip.
Yeah.
The infrastructure in Djibouti is not built for you, the backpacker, or the leisure tourist. It is built for NGOs, diplomats, and military contractors who have completely different needs and budgets.
Right.
There are no hop-on, hop-off tourist buses taking you to the Salt Lakes. The accommodation options outside the capital city don't just thin out, they drop off a cliff.
And the economics of the hotels reflect that corporate focus.
Exactly.
Because the infrastructure is so fixed toward business and military travelers who travel year-round, regardless of the heat, the price variance between peak and off-peak seasons is incredibly rigid.
You don't see massive discounts.
No, you might only see a 20 to 30% shift in accommodation prices throughout the year. The hotels don't need to slash prices in the summer to attract tourists because the diplomats are still booking rooms.
The real dramatic price shifts are almost entirely confined to the airfare.
I should also note, for anyone listening who thinks, I'll just move there for a month and work remotely to justify the flight cost, the digital nomads out there, the sources throw a bucket of cold water on that idea.
They absolutely do.
You are severely hampered by the digital infrastructure. The internet outside the capital is functionally non-existent for remote work.
Yeah, don't plan on Zoom calls from the desert.
So knowing the when and the why, let's shift to the what.
The arrival experience.
Yes. You've timed your trip perfectly for November. You've paid your $1,400 for a flight. You step off the plane. What are your immediate first impressions?
Well, you land at Djibouti International Airport, which is surprisingly close to the action. It is just 5 kilometers from the city center.
Oh, that's convenient.
And the very first thing you experience before you even see the city is the immediate sensory hit.
The heat.
Yes, it is the oppressive heat of the tarmac, mixing with the heavy, distinct salt air blowing directly off the Gulf of Tadjoura. It has a physical weight to it.
And that 5-kilometer drive from the airport into town is basically a high-speed crash course in the country's layered intensity.
What do you see?
You are sitting in the back of a taxi looking out the window, and you are seeing French colonial architecture, some of it crumbling, right next to massive, gleaming, modern port infrastructure funded by foreign capital.
It's quite a contrast.
You see dusty local markets teeming with life. And then you see the very visible, rigid presence of foreign military logistics trucks sharing the same road.
Right.
As the sources explicitly point out, this isn't the polished, gleaming skyline of Dubai or Singapore. It has a gritty, raw edge.
But for a certain type of traveler, that raw edge is exactly what rewards curiosity.
Oh, totally.
Let's dig into the actual ground logistics of arriving, because there are mechanics you have to navigate the moment you land. We mentioned the eVisa is easy to get online.
Yeah, $29 to $49.
But there is a massive catch. It is only easy if you have printed it out on physical paper.
We'll get into the exact mechanics of why that is a trap a little later.
We definitely will. But let's assume you clear immigration smoothly. You need to get to the city.
Right, and this is where the lack of tourist infrastructure hits you immediately. You pull out your phone. There is no Uber. There is no Lyft.
Nothing like that.
There is no official air-conditioned airport shuttle bus waiting to whisk you to your hotel. You are completely reliant on taking a taxi from the rank outside arrivals.
And for a private tourist journey to the center, it's going to cost you about $7 to $12 US. And importantly, these are usually unmetered.
Which means you have to negotiate the fare before you put your bags in the trunk.
Exactly, which can be exhausting after a long flight.
I hate doing that.
However, there is a local alternative if you are extremely budget conscious and willing to navigate the system. Taxis in Djibouti City also operate on a shared basis for local trips. They are locally referred to as taxi brousse.
How does that work in practice?
They function almost like a localized bus system using standard cars. They run on fixed routes, picking up multiple passengers.
Oh, neat.
A trip on a taxi brousse will cost you between 50 cents and $1 US. It is, without a doubt, the single cheapest thing in the entire country.
Okay, so you've navigated the taxi system, and you arrive in the city center, specifically around the Place U27 Schwen.
Right, the heart of it.
This is where you really get a feel for the social fabric of the capital. And you cannot talk about the social fabric of Djibouti without talking about the afternoon economy.
Which is heavily, undeniably dominated by the cot stalls.
Let's explain what that is, because it's crucial to understanding the daily rhythm.
Cot is a mild stimulant leaf. It is grown primarily in the highlands of neighboring Ethiopia and flown in fresh daily.
And people chew it, right?
Chewing it is not just a habit. It is a cornerstone of daily life, business negotiation, and socializing.
It effectively acts as a cot clock for the city, right?
Exactly. By early afternoon, much of the formal business in the city slows down or completely stops as men gather to chew cot, drink tea, and talk.
Good to know.
If you need official paperwork done, or you want a quick response from a local business, you need to accomplish it in the morning. The afternoon belongs to the cot culture.
Beyond that, you immediately notice the deep French colonial legacy embedded in the city.
Oh, yeah.
French is the primary language of commerce, of restaurant menus, and of hotel reception desks.
And if you are looking for the best neighborhoods to actually base yourself in, the sources point you toward 2 specific areas, the Plateau du Serpent or the Heron District.
Okay.
That is where the mid-range and international standard hotels cluster together.
So synthesizing all of this, the ultimate first impression is that Djibouti City is a working city. It is a strategic port city. It is not a polished tourist hub designed to cater to your leisure.
Which leads us to a really vital question. In a city built structurally for diplomats, port executives, and generals, where exactly is an independent leisure traveler supposed to sleep?
Here's where it gets really interesting. This brings up a fascinating dynamic about the local real estate and hospitality economy.
Yeah, because there is a massive structural gap in the accommodation market.
In places like Nairobi or literally anywhere in Southeast Asia, you have this huge missing middle sector. You have boutique hostels, cheap but chic guest houses, affordable Airbnbs.
But not here.
No, in Djibouti, that sector simply does not exist. It is an hourglass economy, heavy at the very bottom, heavy at the very top, and pinched to nothing in the middle.
Let's break down the bottom tier first, the budget tier. For backpackers arriving with dreams of cheap living, the reality is incredibly grim.
Oh man.
There are almost no hostels to speak of. You are looking at basic, locally run spots like Hotel La Siesta near the Market District. A private room there is going to run you $35 to $55 a night.
And let's remind everyone of the climate. You are paying $55 a night, but what are you actually getting?
You are getting 4 walls and a bed, but the crucial factor is the air conditioning. As we discussed, with temperatures soaring to 107 degrees, functional air conditioning is absolutely non-negotiable.
It's not a luxury, it is a safety requirement.
Exactly. Rooms at the lower end of that budget spectrum that lack reliable AC are functionally unusable for a foreign traveler. And if you are holding out hope for a cheap $10 dorm bed, they are exceptionally rare and generally poorly maintained.
Because the backpacker market was never cultivated, so the infrastructure to support it was never built.
Precisely.
Which means most independent travelers, even those who normally travel cheap, are forced to upgrade into the mid-range tier. We're talking about places like Hotel Horseed, Hotel du Golf, and Hotel Le Héron.
And these are going to cost you $70 to $110 per night.
For that price, you get a clean, functional room. You get reliable, modern AC, you get basic Wi-Fi connectivity, and usually a simple breakfast is included in the rate.
It's perfectly fine, but it's not a bargain by global standards.
But then you look at families traveling together, and there's another massive gap in the market.
Yes. There are virtually no conventional mid-tier family resort options.
None.
If you are traveling with children and want a contained, comfortable environment with a pool and activities, the only true oasis in the entire country is the Djibouti Palace Kempinski.
And you have to picture this place. It is this massive, landmark, luxury hotel sitting on a private beachfront looking out over the Gulf of Tadjoura.
It's beautiful.
You step off the dusty, military truck-filled streets, walk through the security gates, and suddenly you are in a different world.
But you absolutely pay for the privilege of that oasis. Standard rooms at the Kempinski run $180 to $280 per night. If you need the space of a family room, you are looking at $200 to $280 per night. It is a genuine 5-star, Gulf-style property. The luxury is real, but the price tag is incredibly steep.
And all of those options we just discussed are just within the capital city.
Right.
If you decide to venture into the harsh interior of the country to see the salt lakes or the volcanoes, the accommodation options drop off a cliff.
There are no international hotel chains in the AFAR triangle. Out there, you are relying entirely on basic eco-lodges and simple traditional overnight camps.
Where do those run?
These will cost you $40 to $80 a night. The issue here isn't just the price, it's the logistics.
Yeah.
The quality control between camps is wildly inconsistent. And because the supply of beds in the desert is so incredibly low, pre-booking your stay is completely mandatory. You cannot just show up at a camp near Lac Assal and hope they have a spare tent.
Okay, so you've paid a premium for your bed, whether it's a basic room at Hotel Horseed or a luxury suite at the Kempinski. The next immediate question every traveler asks is, what are we eating, and how much is it going to hurt my wallet?
This is actually one of the brightest spots in the entire deep dive. While the accommodation might feel overpriced, the food culture is a genuine over-deliverer.
Oh, that's good news.
It is this amazing, fascinating culinary crossroads. You have a blending of Somali stews, Afar traditions, deep French colonial baking techniques, and spicy Yemeni influences brought across the strait.
And for anyone listening who wants to save money, here is the ultimate budget hack for the entire trip.
Let's hear it.
If you eat like a local meter, meaning you step away from the hotels and go to the spots where the port workers, the market traders, and the taxi drivers eat, you are going to encounter a dish called skuta curries.
It is phenomenal. It's an incredibly rich, spiced rice dish, usually cooked low and slow, and served with tender goat or camel meat.
And you eat it with kenjiro, which is a type of fermented flatbread.
Yeah, it functions a bit like injera in Ethiopia or naan in South Asia. You use it to scoop up the meat and rice.
But the best part about this meal is the economics of it.
Exactly. When you eat at these local spots, you pay in Djiboutian francs. A massive filling plate of scutakaris costs between DJF 600 and 1200.
We just.
When you convert that, it translates to roughly $3.40 to $6.80 USD. It is the one time on this entire trip where you really want to leverage the local currency to your advantage.
Because the contrast between that local meal and the expat dining scene is massive.
Oh, totally.
If you walk into the tourist or expat-facing restaurants, particularly in the Heron district, you are instantly hit with Western prices. You are paying $15 to $35 per meal without blinking.
To give you some specific examples from the sources, if you want mid-range dining, a place like Les Salines offers a great mix of French cuisine and East African dishes.
Nice.
That will cost you $18 to $28 a plate. Or there is Restaurant Le Historil, which specializes in incredibly fresh Red Sea seafood.
Oh, I bet that's amazing.
We're talking whole grilled fish, lobster, and shrimp pulled right out of the Gulf. A meal there runs $20 to $35.
Now, a lot of budget travelers might think, okay, I'll just avoid the restaurants entirely. I'll go to the supermarket, buy groceries, and cook for myself.
That's a logical thought.
But the sources reveal a fascinating lesson in import economics when you try to do that.
It's true. The main supermarket in the city is the French-owned Casino Supermarché, located on Boulevard de la République.
Okay.
Looking at the exact prices on their shelves illustrates the logistical reality of the country perfectly. Anything produced locally or subsidized is relatively cheap.
Give us some examples.
Local bread is only 80 cents. A 1.5-liter bottle of water is $1.20. Local yogurt is $1.80. Basic dry pasta is $1.50. And tinned goods average $2 to $3.50.
But the moment you wander into the fresh produce aisle and want imported fresh food boom, the prices explode.
Yeah, they do.
Fresh fruit and vegetables jump to $2 to $4 per portion.
And you have to understand why. You cannot easily grow tomatoes or leafy greens in a 107-degree hypersaline desert environment.
Makes sense.
Every fresh apple, every crisp lettuce leaf has to be flown in or shipped in via refrigerated cold chain logistics from Europe or neighboring agricultural hubs. You are paying for the fuel and the refrigeration, not just the vegetable.
We also need to touch on the cultural etiquette regarding food and socializing, because it directly impacts your evening plans. The country is 94% Muslim.
Right.
That demographic reality means alcohol is simply not a part of mainstream Djiboutian culture.
You can find alcohol, but its availability is mostly confined to licensed high-end expat venues, international hotels, and military-adjacent bars. You aren't going to find a vibrant strip of local pubs.
Right, because as we mentioned earlier, the afternoon socializing revolves entirely around the cot stalls, not the bars.
Exactly. And as a traveler, respecting that Islamic culture is paramount to having a smooth trip.
Yeah.
That means being aware of and respecting daily prayer times. Understanding that Friday is the holy day where many businesses will close, and ensuring you are dressing modestly when navigating local markets and neighborhoods.
Which perfectly sets up the moment of truth. We've talked about the flights, the beds, the transport, and the food. What is the actual bottom line daily out-of-pocket spend?
Let's break down the daily budget.
And just to set the ground rules for the listeners, these numbers are in US dollars, they are calculated per person per day, and they absolutely exclude the cost of your international flights. This is just what you spend on the ground.
Let's start at the absolute bottom with the budget traveler. According to the data, you are looking at an absolute floor of $45 to $65 a day.
How does that break down?
It looks like this: $35 to $50 for that basic bare-bones hotel room. $6 to $10 spent exclusively on local street food, finding those $3 plates of scutakaris. $2 to $4 allocated for navigating the city via the shared taxi bus, and $2 to $5 for bottled water and minor incidentals.
But there is a huge flashing warning label attached to this tier.
There is. If you are operating at the strict budget level, you are essentially flying all the way to Djibouti just to walk around the city.
You can't leave town.
Right. You cannot afford the private 4WD transport required to visit the Salt Lakes, the volcanoes, or the beaches. The natural highlights of the country are locked behind a paywall you can't clear, unless you're incredibly lucky and manage to hustle and find a larger group of tourists to split the vehicle costs with.
So if the budget tier is too restrictive, we move to what I'd call the sweet spot, the mid-range traveler. This tier runs $90 to $130 a day.
That's much more realistic.
You're spending $70 to $110 for a solid hotel like the Horseed with reliable AC. You are allocating $20 to $40 to mix local food with a nice coffee or a mid-range restaurant meal.
And transport.
Transport takes $5 to $15. But crucially, in this budget, you are banking $10 to $20 every single day as a contribution toward group excursions. After a few days, you have enough to fund a day trip to Lac Assal.
Next, we look at the family traveler. And this is where the financial math gets genuinely brutal. For a family of 4, you are looking at $350 to $550 total per day, just to exist comfortably.
Break that down, because that is a massive jump.
Well, we have the Kempinski family room, which is the only truly viable resort option, eating up $200 to $280 of that budget immediately.
Ouch.
Then you have child-friendly Western-style meals running $40 to $80 a day. Hiring a private 4WD with a safe driver to transport the family out to the sites is $80 to $120 a day, plus another $20 to $40 for various entry fees and permits.
Honestly, looking at those numbers, it's terrible value compared to other East African or Indian Ocean alternatives.
Yeah.
You could take a family of 4 to a stunning beach resort in Kenya for less.
It really is a tough sell for families. Now, for the luxury traveler, the math is a bit more straightforward because they are actively seeking exclusivity.
Right.
They are spending $200 to $320 per day per person. That covers the Kempinski rack rates for premium suites, fine dining every night, hiring private, dedicated guides for the interior, and booking scheduled private whale shark swims through premium operators like dolphin excursions, which run $60 to $90 per person.
And finally, we have to look at the digital nomad.
Yes.
If you try to rent an apartment and live here for a month, the total cost runs $1,800 to $2,600. A furnished apartment in a safe district is $600 to $900. Your food budget, assuming a mix of cooking and eating out, is $400 to $600. But the caveat here is massive.
The infrastructure simply doesn't support the lifestyle. Dedicated co-working spaces with high-speed fiber optics are basically non-existent.
You're going to be working from hotel lobbies or cafes.
And the internet bandwidth. It's fine for sending emails or basic browsing, but if your job requires heavy video calls or large file uploads, the network frequently fails.
Yeah.
It is a wildcard destination for a nomad, not a mature plug-and-play hub like Bali, Chiang Mai, or Lisbon.
And looking at all those numbers, from the $65 backpacker to the $320 luxury traveler, it is so easy to see how fast costs can spiral out of control if you aren't paying attention.
Which naturally brings us to the next critical topic, because those costs don't just spiral naturally. Sometimes you fall into a trap that you didn't even know was there.
Yes, the source material outlines 3 specific named logistics traps that routinely ruin trips and destroy budgets for first-time visitors.
Let's look at trap number 1, the transport vacuum.
Explain the mechanism of this trap. How does a traveler get sucked in?
The mechanism is a combination of sheer geography and a complete lack of public infrastructure. Think about the sites you came all the way to Djibouti to see.
Like the Salt Lakes.
Exactly. You want to see the hypersaline waters of Lac Assal. You want to see the limestone chimneys of Lac Bay. You want to visit the Gulf of Tadjoura, the Articoba volcano, or hike the Goda Mountains. Every single one of those locations is situated 60 to 120 kilometers away from the capital city.
And the roads to get there aren't freshly paved highways. You are dealing with demanding, unmarked dirt tracks cutting through the volcanic rock of the FR Triangle.
Right.
These are roads that absolutely require a high-clearance 4WD vehicle and a driver who knows the terrain.
Exactly. And remember our earlier point. There are no tourist buses running daily routes to the volcano. There are no Ubers you can hail to take you into the desert.
So you arrive at your hotel in the city, you walk down to the reception desk to ask how to get to the lake, and the reality hits you.
Hiring a private 4WD with a driver on the spot is going to cost you $100 to $160 for a single day.
Yeah.
If you don't have that cash, you are physically trapped in the city.
The fix for this trap has to happen weeks before you ever board your flight. You need to pre-book group tours.
It's the only way.
By using established operators like Dolphin Excursions or Djibouti Explorer Tours in advance, you can join an existing itinerary and split that massive vehicle cost among a group of 4 or 5 people, bringing your personal transport costs down to a much more manageable $25 to $45 a day.
Trap number 2 is one that absolutely blindsides modern, tech-savvy travelers. It is the eVisa printing requirement.
This one blows my mind. Wait, I have an iPhone. I have the PDF downloaded. I have the barcode. You're telling me I can't just show the screen to the immigration officer?
You absolutely cannot. And here's how the trap works mechanically. The application system on your end is beautifully digital.
Right.
You go to the website, you upload your passport photo, you pay your $29 or $49 fee with a credit card, and you get a digital approval emailed to you.
Super easy.
But the arrival system at the airport is entirely analog. They are operating on legacy IT infrastructure.
So what happens when you hold up your phone?
If you rely on a screenshot on your phone, like you might do seamlessly in Southeast Asia or Europe, the immigration officers will not accept it.
It's flat out.
They don't have localized intranets with barcode scanners that instantly pull up your file. They need a physical piece of paper to stamp, to cross-reference with their printed ledgers, and to file away.
Oh, wow.
If you don't have paper, you are pulled out of line. You will be held up while they have to manually verify your digital record, take your phone to a back office, find a working printer, and print the document for you.
That sounds miserable.
That process can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours of standing around in an un-air-conditioned arrivals hall after a long flight.
It's infuriating, but the fix is wonderfully old school and simple. Print 2 physical copies of the PDF at home before you leave for the airport. Put one in your carry-on backpack and put one in your check bag as a backup.
Don't rely on anyone else to print it for you.
Right. Do not assume your hotel will print it for you when you land, because you physically cannot get to the hotel without handing that paper to the border guard first.
Exactly. Trap number 3 is an economic one. The sources refer to it as the expat price tier. To understand this trap, you have to understand who the local economy has been calibrated for over the last few decades.
It's the institutional per diems, right?
Precisely. We are talking about NATO logistics officers, senior diplomats, and international NGO directors.
People on corporate cards.
Yes. When they go out to dinner, they aren't paying with their own savings. Their meals and hotel rooms are covered by massive government or corporate expense accounts.
And the local restaurant owners are smart. They know that a French military officer has a $50 dinner per diem, so they price the steak at $45 to capture that capital.
Exactly.
But as a tourist spending your own hard-earned money, you walk into a restaurant, look at the menu, and realize you're paying Paris prices in a country with a relatively low GDP.
It's a shock.
You are paying $15 to $35 for a basic meal, or $70 to $280 for a standard room. It feels economically wrong until you understand who the menu is actually printed for.
The fix here requires you to actively step out of that subsidized bubble. You have to put in the effort.
What should people do?
Ask your hotel staff, the local workers, not the concierge, where they eat when they get off shift. Walk a few blocks away from the Heron district. Find those local spots to get that $3.40 to $6.80 plate of skudakaris.
So what does this all mean? We have massive costs, we have analog logistical traps, we have a massive military presence, and we have an economy distorted by foreign expense accounts. Let's pivot to a crucial topic. How do you move around safely in a place like this?
The military presence we discussed earlier actually provides the foundational answer to the safety question.
Okay, let's go back to that.
As we broke down, that U.S. Level 2 advisory is entirely about the dangerous neighborhood, Somalia, Yemen, the Houthis, not the house itself. The fact that 5 foreign bases are packed into the country creates a localized security umbrella that is simply unmatched anywhere else in the Horn of Africa. The threat of international terrorism within Djibouti City is heavily suppressed by the sheer volume of global intelligence and military hardware monitoring the area.
But I want to push back a bit, because a military umbrella doesn't stop a pickpocket. On a street level, away from the bases, it's still a normal, bustling African port city.
That's true. You still have to deal with standard petty crime.
Yeah.
There is pickpocketing in the crowded markets, and bag snatching can occur at night if you are walking alone in poorly lit areas. But the sources highlight one specific psychological scam that you need to be acutely aware of. It's known as the friend of a friend guide scam.
How does that play out on the street?
It relies entirely on your politeness. You'll be walking near the central market or the port, and a local man will casually fall into step beside you.
Just chatting you up.
Yeah. He will start pointing things out, explaining the history of a building, or acting like a friendly, welcoming local who just wants to practice his English or French. He builds a quick rapport,
Okay.
and then at the end of this entirely unsolicited 20-minute walking tour, his demeanor will shift, and he will aggressively demand a 20 to 50 US dollar fee for his guide services.
And because you feel socially obligated or intimidated by the sudden aggression, you pay it.
Exactly.
The fix here is a hard, immediate, and absolute refusal of any unsolicited guides right from the start. The moment someone starts giving you a tour you didn't ask for, just say a firm no and keep walking. Break the social contract before the trap closes.
That's the best advice.
Now, what about solo female travel? That's always a critical safety metric.
It is feasible, but it requires active, conscious management. As we noted, it is a 94% Muslim country with conservative social norms.
Dress codes.
In local areas, markets, and outside the expat bubbles, female travelers must ensure their shoulders and knees are covered to avoid unwanted attention and out of basic cultural respect.
What about in the nice areas?
The upscale Heron district is perfectly safe and comfortable for Western dress, but independent solo travel into the deep interior without a hired guide is strongly advised against for safety and logistical reasons.
And for families, the primary danger isn't crime or scams, it is the environment. The heat is the absolute biggest threat. Children are incredibly susceptible to 107-degree temperatures, dehydration, and heat stroke.
Absolutely.
Plus, if something goes wrong, the medical infrastructure is extremely basic. The Hôpital General Peltier is the main facility in the capital, but it is not equipped for complex emergencies.
Which makes comprehensive medical evacuation insurance completely non-negotiable for anyone visiting.
So true.
If you have a severe medical emergency, you need an insurance policy that will fly you out to Dubai or Europe immediately.
Exactly. It's a non-negotiable for any extreme adventure destination. So, with all of this friction mapped out, the exorbitant costs, the 107-degree heat, the logistical traps, the lack of infrastructure, I have to demand an answer. What makes all of this worth it? Let's get into the best moments and the honest disappointments.
The friction is high, but the highs are absolutely phenomenal. They are things you cannot easily replicate anywhere else on Earth.
Okay, hit me.
The absolute peak experience, the crown jewel of the trip, is the whale sharks.
I am genuinely geeking out over the mechanics of this. Around Arta Beach, the Gulf of Tadjoura, and the Bay of Gubit, you can actually get into the water and go snorkeling with these filter-feeding giants.
They're magical.
These are animals that can grow to be 40 feet long, swimming gracefully through warm, clear water, scooping up plankton, and you get to be right there with them.
And compared to the rest of the country, the price for this experience is surprisingly reasonable.
What does it cost?
It costs around $60 to $90 for a half-day boat trip through established operators like Dolphin Excursions. It is genuinely world-class marine wildlife access, largely free from the massive crowds of boats you'd see in places like Mexico or the Philippines.
Beyond the ocean, you have the geology.
Yes, Lac Assal is astonishing. It is geographically the lowest point in all of Africa, sitting at a staggering 155 meters below sea level.
That's crazy.
It is a hypersaline lake, meaning the water is even saltier than the Dead Sea. The visual contrast is stunning. Blindingly white salt flats surrounded by the dark, jagged volcanic rock of the FR Triangle. You can literally see the tectonic plates pulling apart.
And remarkably, there is no official entry fee or ticket booth to see the lake itself. But, as we discussed in the transport trap, getting out there is the real cost.
Exactly. $100 to $160 for a private 4WD, or $25 to $45 if you join a group tour, which usually includes a scenic stop at the Goda Mountains along the way.
And if you have the time and the budget, there is Lac Assal, situated right near the Ethiopian border.
It's a surreal multi-day excursion.
The landscape is dominated by these massive, steaming limestone chimneys, venting sulfurous gases, surrounded by vast flocks of pink flamingos wading in the shallow waters. It looks entirely extraterrestrial.
A fully guided tour out there, including overnight camping, runs $180 to $250.
But we promised the listeners an honest verdict, which means we cannot just highlight the beautiful geology. We have to address the lows. The honest disappointments are real.
The severely thin infrastructure is a major disappointment for travelers used to a certain rhythm.
I agree completely. I love arriving in a new city where you can wander down a dedicated, pedestrian-friendly tourist street, pop into an English-language museum to learn the history, check out some local art galleries, and sit at a sidewalk cafe.
Djibouti City simply doesn't have that infrastructure.
It is dusty, it is heavily industrial, and it is built unapologetically for the working port and the military. It does not cater to your desire for a leisurely stroll.
Connectivity is another major frustration. As we noted, outside of the expensive bubble of the Kempinski, the internet network is genuinely poor. But the ultimate overarching reality check that leaves many travelers disappointed is the value ratio.
Yeah, that is the hardest pill to swallow. You are paying high-end Gulf prices, you are paying what you would pay for a luxury vacation in Dubai or Doha, but you are getting basic Horn of Africa infrastructure in return. The math is tough to justify.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it forces a direct comparison.
To other destinations.
Yes. If you want this kind of geological or marine experience, are there other places you should be looking at instead?
That is exactly what we need to look at next, the alternatives. The source material provides two distinct pivot points depending on what you actually want to get out of the trip.
Alternative 1 is specifically for the geology lovers. If you want volcanic landscapes, you should look at Ethiopia.
Okay, how so?
Specifically, flying into Addis Ababa and taking an expedition into the Danakil Depression. If your goal is to see things like the bubbling lava of the Erda El volcano or the neon-colored Delal sulfur fields, Ethiopia offers an arguably more dramatic landscape for significantly less money.
Let's run the numbers on that alternative.
Flights from London to Addis Ababa are much cheaper, usually hovering around $650 and $900. Your daily on-the-ground budget drops to $25 to $70.
Huge difference.
A comprehensive 3 to 4 day tour departing from Mek via established operators like Ethiopia Trailhead runs between $400 and $700. So the entire trip, start to finish, might cost you $1,200 to $1,800 compared to the $2,500 to $3,500 you'd spend in Djibouti.
But here's the massive trade-off, and I have to push back on the idea that it's a perfect one-to-one substitute. The pushback is safety. The Afar region in Ethiopia carries genuine, documented security risks.
It does.
There's a history of armed incursions and rebel activity targeting tourist expeditions near those borders. Djibouti's massive 5-base military infrastructure makes its geological sites vastly safer to visit. You are trading financial cost for physical security.
That is a very fair point. The second alternative is Oman.
Oman is fantastic.
If your primary interest isn't volcanoes, but rather Red Sea access, pristine diving, and engaging with deep Islamic culture, Muscat and the surrounding regions offer a fantastic, highly polished option.
The flights to Oman from Western hubs are only $400 to $700. The daily budget is a very reasonable $60 to $130.
And the infrastructure is great.
Yeah, you get massively better infrastructure, beautiful highways, and Oman actually has a very similar whale shark window down in the Dhofar region. Plus, there are no level 2 security warnings to worry about.
But again, there's a trade-off in the experience. Oman lacks that raw, gritty geopolitical edge. You don't have the intense cot culture shutting down the afternoon.
No, you don't.
You don't have the surreal experience of 5 global military bases operating down the street. It lacks the sheer, overwhelming, complex intensity that makes Djibouti so unique.
Which brings us to the final summation. We need to take all of this data, the flights, the heat, the military, the whales, the alternatives, and place every traveler type into the ultimate matrix to answer the core question of this show. Is it worth it?
Let's run the matrix. First up, the backpacker.
For me, based on everything we've read and analyzed, this is a hard, borderline, heavily leaning toward a definitive no. Surviving on $45 to $65 a day in this economy means immense, painful compromise.
Absolutely.
There is no vibrant hostile culture to plug into to meet people, and paying a $1,400+ airfare just to eat cheap street food while you can't even afford the $160 4WD needed to visit the interior, it's a completely disproportionate investment. Your money goes so much further in almost any other country.
I completely agree. For the mid-range traveler, I give it a conditionally worth it.
What's the condition?
And that condition is incredibly strict. Yes, but only if you time your trip specifically between October and January for the whale shark migration.
Ah.
Spending $90 to $130 a day plus your airfare means the total trip is going to cost around $2,000 to $3,500 for a 7 to 10 day stay. It is a resounding yes for a deeply adventure-curious, marine wildlife enthusiast who wants bragging rights. But if you're looking for a pure city break with charming cafes, walkable streets, and museums, skip it entirely.
What about the family traveler? I have to give this a hard not recommended. The financial math alone is insane. You're looking at $7,000 to $12,000 total for a family of 4 flying from a Western market.
It's just too much.
The value proposition is terrible compared to taking your family to Oman, the Maldives, or the Seychelles for the same price. The city is unpolished, the logistical friction of navigating the traps is high, and the 107-degree heat is genuinely too tough and potentially dangerous for young kids.
For the luxury traveler, my ruling is worth it with managed expectations. If you are willing to spend $2,600 to $4,100 for a 6-day trip, including your flights, you can stay at the Kempinski, charter a private boat for Gulf snorkeling, and hire a private, air-conditioned 4WD to Lac Assal.
That sounds incredible.
That provides a next-level, off-grid luxury experience that feels incredibly exclusive. It is not outrageously priced for the high-end luxury tier, but you must understand the context. It is not a passive, manicured Club Med experience. The city around your 5-star oasis is raw and industrial.
And finally, the digital nomad, or the long-term solo traveler. I conclude it is interesting, but not viable long-term.
I agree.
It is fantastic for a 2 to 3 week solo deep dive if you are an absolute geopolitical nerd who really wants to understand Red Sea logistics and military dynamics from the inside. But it's a terrible place to set up a 6-month nomad base.
The internet just won't cut it.
Exactly. The Wi-Fi infrastructure cannot support professional remote work, and the social scene is heavily, rigidly skewed toward expats and military personnel on per diems, not an open, creative nomad community.
The overarching takeaway from all the source material is that Djibouti is a destination for the traveler who wants to deeply engage with the harsh, complex realities of the modern world, not someone looking to escape from them.
That is perfectly stated. It is a place that demands your attention. As we wrap up this massive overview, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on.
Consider this dynamic. Djibouti's entire economic structure, its real estate market, its restaurant prices, and its unparalleled safety umbrella currently rely entirely on intense global geopolitical tension and the active threat in the Red Sea. If lasting peace were ever to truly break out in the region, and those 5 global military bases packed up and went home, what would happen? Would Djibouti's ambitious 2030 tourism dream finally flourish unhindered by military logistics? Or would the very infrastructure and security that makes it safely accessible to travelers today simply collapse overnight?
If this gave you the honest verdict you needed, follow the show. New episodes drop every day.
That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.